Good evening, voters. Tonight, we once again put the spotlight on the AgustaWestland helicopters deal that was struck and then cancelled during the UPA era. This, as the leaked charge sheet, grabs headlines between yesterday and today. But let me first break it down for you. What is it that this charge sheet actually tells us? In 2003, AgustaWestland was rejected for the chopper deal as it didn't meet the operational requirements. Whatever it is that the government and the Air Force had put out as the criteria, this company did not meet those requirements, so it wasn't going to make the cut. It is then that this company hired Guido Haschke and Carlo Gerosa for the first time. They allegedly helped in changing the operational requirements only so that it could benefit AgustaWestland, and this company could then become eligible for this chopper deal. Then in 2006, Christian Michel was brought on board and he was hired to further help tip the scale in the favor of this Italian firm. According to this charge sheet, Enforcement Directorate says a total of 70 million euros were paid as kickbacks or bribes via these two middlemen. So what really happened was these two middlemen set up a web of companies to channelize and transfer the money that would then be used to pay bribes and influence people. So there were two sets of companies and two channels that opened, one via Christian Michel and one with Guido Haschke and Carlos Gerosa. What were these companies? To name a few, there was IDS Tunisia, there was Guardian Services, Global Services, Global Trade and Commerce. And the Enforcement Directorate claims that in many cases, services were not even given by these companies, or the payments that were made were not in tune with the services that were being provided. Meaning, these contracts were fake, were a sham, and they were only made to show a legitimate contract was in place, even though this was the channel that was being used to funnel the money that would be then used for bribe and lobbying for AgustaWestland. Now, over the next 1 hour, I'm going to get you more details from this latest charge sheet. It's the fourth supplementary charge sheet that has been filed to highlight the role of middlemen. Yes, that's what we are focusing on tonight. The role of middlemen in defense deals in our country. Because after all, it looks like the story keeps repeating from Bofors in the early 90s to AgustaWestland in 2011, 2010. The story remains the same. Have we moved on from there? Have we rooted out corruption by getting rid of these middlemen? Those are the basic questions that I'm going to ask on the other side of this report. So I have very basic questions tonight. Can a defense deal happen in this country without the stink of corruption? Has corruption really been rooted out of defense deals in our countries now? And does the charge sheet that has been filed by ED prove that middlemen thrive in defense deals? Let's say good evening to our panelists. Gopal Agarwal, spokesperson for the BJP. Professor Gaurav Vallabh, spokesperson for the Congress Party. Deepak Sharma, founder for India Samvad. KK Manan, senior advocate with the Delhi High Court. And Maruf Raza, strategic affairs expert, also a consulting editor for our network. Manoj Joshi, distinguished fellow, Observer Research Foundation. And I want to start with Mr. Gopal Agarwal. Mr. Gopal Agarwal, do you believe that your government has managed to change this system? The things we would read during Bofors' time apparently were still happening during AgustaWestland's time. Has that stopped? Have you thrown out these middlemen?
Definitely. It is the willpower of the people in power. If they are involved into corruption, then ultimately the money flows to them. So this was the work through which First Family was operating throughout the defense deals. And no defense deal was happening because without the involvement of middlemen, and everybody in the know-how knew in Delhi that for whom this middlemen were working through whom. So this was the structure in defense deal, and therefore our government, Modi ji, particularly just did away with this whole system. And it is not only this. the important thing is that these were operating through shell companies, layers and layers of shell companies, through multiple bank accounts, through corporate structures, and layering the transactions and moving those money trails, camouflaging those money trails. Over these 5 years, systematically we have delisted, deregistered 2.5 lakh shell companies from the ROCs. They existed in the system before. They were being used by these defense deal dalals. We have done away with them. There is a bank trail, audit trail that has been established, and bank accounts have been now linked to Aadhaar. Identity of ownership of money has been established. It is because of all this that now an ecosystem has been created where deals can take place through a transparent manner. This is one part. The other important part is what happened in AgustaWestland. Very clearly, there is a clear-cut demarcation that the money has flown from AgustaWestland to people in power in India, which helped the deal and change the laws and help in greasing the hands and creating goodwill for AgustaWestland and getting them contract. Now the issue was where this money went, because this investigation started in Switzerland, then in Italy, and then from there the Indian government came to know, and in 2013, when the UPA government was in power, they came to know that now we cannot be saved. So they tried to close the deal and push everything behind the carpet to close. It was
okay. Let's take it point by point, Gopal Agarwal.
Tried to cancel the contract, put the file and close. And it is our government that now UAE has extradited Christian Michel, and everything is now coming out.
So everything is now coming out.
Entry. It is also the audit trail of money flow that is important.
Okay, let's take it point by point, because we have the entire chart sheet with us, and I'm actually going to read out some of those excerpts. But very quickly, I want an opening response from Gaurav Vallabh on this. Gaurav Vallabh, because it looks like even when Bofors scandal broke out, the report suggested that there were, middlemen who were involved in the entire supply chain, in the entire deal talk, who got a commission of up to 7% to get that deal done. From then to now, middlemen involved getting 5% commission. What have you done during your era? Why is every defense deal under the scanner?
I am asking, ED is releasing or giving to their sources one uncertified paper. And on that paper, what is written? AP. I am also saying NM is Bhagoda. Who is NM, you know? Who is NM is Bhagoda number 1. Who is NM? I am asking all the viewers, who is NM? Is it Narendra Modi or Nirav Modi? So please have some basic understanding that what you are talking, what is written in that charge sheet. And I am telling again and again, whatever course of law of action you want to take it. But please have some legal action on the Yedurappa diary also, where 1800 crore was written. The name of Amit Shah is written. Sushma ji is written. Name of many Advani ji was written. What action you had initiated? You had 2 types of action based on your convenience. First thing. Second thing I am saying, is AgustaWestland deal executed? The answer is big no. Then when the deal had not been executed, when we had blacklisted, when we had asked CBI to investigate,
but the money
what
has
Modi
when
Saab
did you
had done,
blacklist it?
Modi Saab had removed the blacklisting.
When did you blacklist it?
Please have decency.
When did you blacklist it, Mr.
Gaurav
Vallabh?
The money had already flown.
Or is it because of Congress?
You don't have to. You don't have to tell me how to anchor this debate, Gaurav Vallabh. The spotlight is on the UPA tonight because this deal was struck under your era.
Some decency of debate. I can't.
Gaurav Vallabh, I don't need to be taught decency from you. I don't need to be taught decency from you. You and the government cancelled the deal only after Fin Mechanica officials were arrested.
I don't want to participate in
that is your choice. Questions are difficult for Congress tonight. That's your choice. You don't want to face the tough questions. That's completely your choice, whether you want to be part of this conversation or not. And the Congress party has decided that these questions are too tough for them, so they're going to walk out of this debate. And there you go. Viewers, this is what happens. There is a charge sheet that has been filed about a deal that was struck under the UPA era. And just at the very set of questions that I put forward, the Congress party spokesperson has run away from this debate. Now, because Gaurav Valla was pointing out the fact that what is the evidence in this? And I want to talk about how easy the access seems to have been, how easy it was for middlemen to come in to try and influence bureaucrats, ministers, political leaders. And this is a fact that the middlemen in this case had complete knowledge of what was going on. They had details of every single cabinet meeting. They had details of when the file was moving from one desk to the other. They had even details of what in that cabinet meeting, which minister stood where. And I'm going to, just be patient with me a little, I'm going to read out one excerpt from this chart sheet. Now, this is a dispatch that the Enforcement Directorate claims was sent as a fax from Christian Michel to his associates in Italy. And in this dispatch, if this is indeed true, this is what Christian Michel writes. The procurement paper has been sent to 5 cabinet members: Home Ministry, Finance Ministry, Foreign Ministry, Defense Ministry, Prime Minister, and the party leader. None of them had any problems but for the Finance Minister. At that point of time, the Finance Minister was Pranab Mukherjee. For the last month, his ministry has been sending back silly questions. On Thursday last week, his office asked why we could not find a cheaper option. We spoke to his secretary, who stated there was no problem with the file, but the FM had told her to hold the file. She was warned by us that the file was too sensitive to be held on a desk. Listen to this. Here is a middleman who's saying, we have warned the secretary of the finance minister that the file is too sensitive to be held on her desk and it should be sent to the finance minister's desk immediately. We then sent a mutual friend to see the finance minister. He explained that he felt he had been ignored in this entire decision-making process and is being harassed into signing. He is an old friend and maybe we did not treat him with enough respect. The party leader will speak to him and we expect to calm him down. He has not yet caused a delay. Now, for our viewers to understand, there are a series of these dispatch letters which are like updates that Christian Michel seems to be sending via his team members to people in Italy on this deal and where the file is and what the conversation is. And that is what is appalling if it is true. And Manoj Joshi, how easy access seems to be when it comes to such a crucial defense deal, that you know every part of government decision making.
You know, I have some basic objections to all this, in the sense you haven't pointed out that in 2014, an Italian court acquitted all these people of any charges of international corruption. Now, that's number one. Number two, why should I believe the Enforcement Directorate? Meaning, we have seen in this country the number 1 man in CBI accused the number 2 man of corruption and the number 2 man accused the number 1 of corruption. Meaning, the kind of institutions we are talking about, CBI, ED, etc., they don't have much credibility, in my mind at least. I don't know whether you believe them. Third thing is that isn't it a coincidence that all this is coming out during the time of elections? And the fourth thing is that all these bad guys, they seem to have diaries and they note down all this incriminating stuff in diaries. Now, I'm very, very surprised at that. Do you really think that if I'm bribing someone, I'm bribing a number of guys, I'm going to be noting it in a diary so that the police catches it? And I really wonder how they laid their hands on Christian Michel's diary when Christian Michel knew that he was under the shadow of extradition in UAE. If he had evidence like that, he would have destroyed it.
Okay.
So a whole lot of this is a total jumble, meaning there's a lot of confusion here. You're talking of middlemen, corruption. Look, middlemen, consultants, it's only India where they are not permitted. In every other country, they do their work. In India, there are circumstances. It take me too long to explain to you why this happened in 1985, why this mood against middlemen changed. It is the Congress party which actually banned them for a long, long time, and which, in fact, defense procurement suffered because of that. The middlemen play a certain role. The defense industry is of a certain nature where these middlemen and consultants play a certain role. And the lack of that role created a huge number of problems in the past. So to assume that a middleman or a consultant automatically equals corruption, I don't go by that.
Well, in this case, I will take your point to say that the credibility of CBI and ED themselves is at risk. I will also point out to my viewers at this point that this is a charge sheet. It's just a set of claims that the ED has submitted to the court. The court will take the cognizance of this charge sheet at some point procedurally, and then ED will have to prove this case in the court. And often what we see, even in cases of big scams and scandals that have broken out in the history of our country, we have failed to prove these large-scale allegations and scam details. So I take your point there, Manoj Joshi, but the fact of the matter is that in our country, lobbying and lobbying is illegal. Presence of middlemen to carry out this conversation is illegal. The fact of the matter is that ED right now is also talking about a money trail. The fact of the matter also is, like you mentioned, internationally these authorities have investigated this case. That is how the case broke out. The case broke out when in 2013, Italian police actually arrested the officials in Europe. And that's when we woke up to this, and that's when we cancelled the deal. So for all of that halla that the Congress spokesperson was making and trying to take credit for cancelling the deal, they cancelled the deal after Finmechanica chairperson went to jail in Europe. There wasn't really much option left. But Maruf Raza, do you agree with what Manoj Joshi is saying and to the question that I was asking? They are acquitted. Yes, I'm just saying that once they have been arrested, it would have been difficult for a government to then go ahead with a deal with the same company, which is why they cancelled it. But Maruf, to the larger question of how defense deals and conversations are done, at the end of the day, it is about our national security.
Well, you know, Tanvi, Dr. Joshi is a learned man and I have great respect for him. And I think all the important points raised by him merit attention and merit a serious debate instead of just trying to say who took a bribe and who didn't. You know, there are 3 or 4 ironies. You brought out one of them already, that we've had these scandals for ages. It's not just Bofors. This was way back to the Jeep scandal, as far as I can remember, in the 50s and 60s, when Mr. Krishna Menon was also, his name was linked to something of that nature, if I remember correctly. But down the line, there has never been a case with all the evidence that is gathered by all these investigative agencies who are paid a huge amount of money from the taxpayers' sums, and at the end of the day, they can't seem to put up enough evidence to nail one person. I mean, look at it. Before, other than the AgustaWestland scandal, there was the submarine scandal in which Abhishek Verma was allegedly involved, but eventually he went free. And before that, there were also the Hawala scandal of 2003, I think, when many eminent politicians from both the BJP and the Congress were named, and the courts finally freed them. So I want to make an important suggestion, and I feel this whole charade of a defense procurement process should be set aside. Why? Because we've gone into circles formulating the defense procurement process, which gets regularly updated. Right now, they are more or less giving the finishing touches to the 2016 DPP. But the fact of the matter is that this process has only delayed the modernization of the armed forces. And this is what brings me to the second irony. We were, at least until yesterday, the world's largest arm importer. But today we are probably in the position 2 or 3, because I just read a report that the Middle East countries are again buying like hell because of the various conflicts that are taking place in the West Asian world, from Syria to rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran, etc. That arms purchases have gone up in some country by 354%. So the fact of the matter is, but we are still there amongst the top 2-3 buyers. The fact is, if we still buy because we desperately need for modernization of our armed forces, but you talk to the armed forces and they say we are woefully inadequately equipped. Most of 60-65% of our equipment is of vintage caliber. You just saw MiG-21 involved in a dogfight with an F-16. So the fact of the matter is that what are we doing this defense procurement process for if at the end of the day, when we are willing to spend, we still can't modernize our armed forces? And it brings me to the third irony. And the third irony is that the political parties who keep pointing fingers at each other. Now you had during the UPA regime some of the largest arms deals that were done with the US. Now all those arms deals, barring aside this Westland scandal, were generally seen to be clean, and it has given us some tremendous capability, at least in the form of the Air Force's capability of lift aircrafts, etc. But at the same time, when the Modi government went in for the Rafale deal, suddenly it became mired in a scandal, though it was a government-to-government deal. I would still argue, set aside the damn defense procurement process, do only government-to-government deals. You have no room for middlemen, and if you do have, at the end of the day, the politicians can keep slanging at each other, but at least you get the equipment to modernize our armed forces. Otherwise, we'll continue to be a first-class military force with third-rate equipment. And that is the irony that we continue to look at. Whatever the debate happens, I am concerned about national security, and I'm sorry to say, every political party has let the military down.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you, and it's come to a point where it has become a large cause of concern because modernization of the defense must happen and the politics needs to be kept aside when we look at that. Gopal Agarwal, I'll come to you. I have two more guests who haven't spoken, so let me just get their remarks also. And I also want to point out from the charge sheet, these dispatches, and I keep going back to them because if indeed they are true, what ED has put here, that it's very concerning the extent of access that these middlemen had. There is a dispatch from February 2008 where he's writing that on the 14th of February, the flight trial team are back in Delhi with their tech report on AW and the Americans. If we can, and it will not be easy in the next 2 months, it will be our chance to throw out the competition. The Defense Secretary and the Joint Secretary will have to be brought on board at this point. There is another one in August 2009 which says that there are further meetings this week and I will keep you informed, but we will not be presented all this week's CCS for obvious reasons. There is another one in August 2009 that shows that they also know about the meetings happening within the PMO. National Security Advisor to the PM has received a briefing from RAW about the threat environment. Special Production Group has written to the Cabinet Secretary and the NSA. This problem will be sorted out. We think on such a high-profile deal, there was bound to be one last attack. Every single conversation, every single movement on this deal that was happening within the government corridors, according to these dispatches, were known to these middlemen and therefore known to the companies who are buying these contracts from our government, and they could have used this information in any way that they wanted. And Deepak Sharma, that is the extent of rot and corruption that was there in our government. We can't deny whether or not one instance here is true or not. I mean, there have been several instances of lobbies and middlemen walking around the corridors of, these ministries as if they owned it.
Tanvi, that's very true that Lutyens Delhi, you'll find scores of middlemen, covering the defense beat or the petroleum beats, who are sitting in the all 5-star hotel. But let me tell the viewers one thing. Since 1994, I'm covering CBI and ED. It's almost 25 years. One thing I want to tell you that in any given scam, in any given scandal, corruption scandal, the initial 3 months of investigation, they're very important because that's the time when the investigating officer and the supervisory officer, they gather the perpetual evidence, the files, the witnesses, a plan of action, that what will be the plan of action of the investigation, what will be the strategy. It's all planned out in the initial 3 months. And I must reiterate that for more than 1 year, this scam was investigated by CBI during UPA 2's regime. So Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister at that time. I'm not blaming Congress that evidence was compromised. But let me tell you that in that 1 year time, nothing material was found.
Correct.
Then simultaneously, the money trail was being investigated by the ED. And the first chief investigating officer was Vikas Mehta. He raided Panchsheel, and one fine morning, and I went on the spot, and Gautam Khetan, who was the consultant to Christian Michel,
Yes.
He was arrested. I asked a simple question to Mr. Mehta, who was there on the spot, that why you have arrested this man? And he said there is a money trail. Money was being siphoned off from Italy, was sent to Tunisia. From Tunisia, it came to Dubai. From Dubai, it came into 2 bank accounts of Gautam Khetan in Delhi. So there was a money trail. And when there is a money trail, that's the perpetual evidence. Now, what is the money trail against Ahmed Patel? What is the money trail against the family, which we are mentioning? So what I feel that this case can make a lot of noise during these elections, this crucial elections. But as far as the evidence is concerned, I think unless you trail the bank account where the money went, like in Gautam Khetan's case,
Correct.
who was a chartered accountant and consultant to this deal, who was a close friend of Mr. Christian Michel,
Yes.
who was operating from Claridge's hotel at that point of time. So the money trail is literally missing in this case, and I don't see any merit.
Okay.
As far
Yes.
as
So as far as these charge sheets are concerned, the money trail does go cold after a certain level and category of people involved. Mr. Menon, do you think that's the reason that the ED hasn't gone after these others?
Tanvi, I want to just brief
Yes,
comment.
Mr. Gopal Agarwal.
The issue I want to tell you is that everybody must have heard the third party gratification and the network of NGOs and other organizations through which these shell companies, etc., people were working. Those people we are dealing with, the first family or whoever we call in the UPA era, they were people in power and they were careful enough that there cannot be a transparent money trail to them. The issue is that when Mr. Christian Michel is getting access to each and every proceedings in the people in power from the files, which they themselves are saying that confidential, how he was getting it. They have to explain. We are now the Congress should come out and explain how those things came to be known to Christian Michel.
Actually, you know what, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, that was a question I was going to ask you. Do you think Sonia Gandhi was sitting there and leaking these files? Obviously not. There were officials in the ministry who would be leaking this information. And if you are investigating the case, the onus is on you to find these bureaucrats or whichever government official it was who was leaking all of this information.
So that's what it is being done.
No, you haven't done that. Well, how many government officials have been pulled up, have been booked, have been arrested outside of these middlemen who've been extradited? You tell me, within the government, how many people have faced action? How many IAS officers have faced action?
Tanvi, do you think that you want to? No, Tanvi, do you think that a clerk or any officer, etc., are punishable in this? Ultimately,
you don't think so?
Decision,
if it's an confidential information, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, may I just remind you what your government has submitted in court for Rafale deal? This is confidential information that has been stolen from the government, which is a massive crime. And if it is a crime for the media to report on it, it should be a crime for those government officials who leaked this information, whether it was the Augusta case or the Rafale case.
Mr. Tyagi, who
now, apart from making noise on it politically, if you really want to bring people to book, those are the people you need to look into. Now, wait 1 minute, please. I need to go across to Mr. Manan, get a legal voice here, and I will come back to you, Gopal Agarwal.
Mr. Tyagi was the ex-air chief.
Yes.
No, Mr. Tyagi was the ex-air chief.
Not a government babu.
Who spent time in the jail.
Yes.
So the issue, we are in the through charge sheet, etc. only, you will establish. Investigation will take time, charge sheet has been filed, audit trail has been established. Always it will be difficult to link that to that first family, because directly they would not
It's
have
not
taken
so
the
difficult
bribe.
for you
Would
and
they-
your
the
party leaders
question
who are
is-
talking
may I
about
just
it
come in
every
here?
single
May I
day.
just come in?
If it is so difficult, then why are you
No,
harping
no, it
about
is
it
not
every
for us.
single
May I
day?
just
It
come
is
in?
the
Mr.
investigation.
Maruf, I'll just come to you in just a bit. KK Manan has been patiently waiting. Why, Mr.
We are
Manan,
not
do you
arguing.
think that is the reason
It is the
till
media
date
question.
this so-called
It is the,
SG and
question
RG
which has to be
and
raised by the
AP
people
and
of the
FAM
country.
have not been booked? Because the political leadership seems to suggest that everybody knows who they are and they got the money, but nobody has been questioned by the ED. Nobody has even been booked. Now, if you look at this, these dispatches, ED in its own charge sheet, Mr. Manan, is saying, as Mrs. Gandhi is the driving force behind the VIP, she will not fly anymore in MI8. Mrs. Gandhi and her closest advisors are the people the High Commissioner should target. There is another dispatch that says, meeting at the beginning of the week with regards to the Italian lady's son. The gentleman confirmed that the son will be the next prime minister and his power in the party is growing by the day. And it goes on, and there are a lot of internal politics that seems to suggest between the top Congress leaders. My point is, if the ED is claiming that they have these dispatches and they know who they're talking about, why are these people not being questioned or booked?
Now, may I start?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
I am totally agree with Mr. Joshi. All the accused have already been acquitted in Italy court. They are being tried again in India now. Now, one by one, please listen me patiently, Mr. BJP spokesman. I am not a spokesman and I am not a party person of any party. I am an independent person, minded. Number one is, first Mr. Michel was arrested by the CBI. He was taken into a police custody for 14 days because his statement was not admissible in the eyes of law. So nothing has come out. He was giving the slips, if you will remember, that the CBI officials are pressurizing me to name Sonia Gandhi, to name AP. But I am not, because the statement made by him before the CBI was not admissible. Now again, he was arrested by the ED people. You see the irony that for 14 days, again he was kept in a ED. Time and again, his police remand was being extended because his statement was admissible.
Sir,
whatever he
how
says
Congress
before the
went
ED
and
as per
ran
the
to
law.
save
Now,
Christian
three.
Michel.
One minute, Mr.
So
Gopal
far as
Agarwal.
family-
etc.
Mr. Gopal
went there
Agarwal,
to
let him
save him.
finish his point. I will come to you only for response because it's a
Mr.
direct
Gopal
comment to you.
Agarwal, you are no. Mr. Gopal Agarwal, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, you BJP people are the judicial. Judicial people सिर्फ आप हैं इस देश में. Everybody knows it. What about Rafale? Have you any answer today? Everybody knows this government is after Sonia Gandhi. After
I will answer
Rahul
every
Gandhi,
question.
after
I
Ahmed
have
Patel.
written on
we
every
have seen
question.
Oh no, you can't. You can't. You can't.
In the
you
mark
can't.
of
you
neutrality,
can't. We know
don't
it. You
talk
say
or
2
take
plus
sides.
2 is equal to
Okay,
9. Please,
Mr. Manan, let's
please
stick to the
keep-
details
keep-
of this
no,
case,
please
and you
keep
were making
quiet
the
now.
point.
I'm
Yes.
not a BJP man or
Correct.
a congressman.
Go ahead, please. Finish
Please.
your point that
Now
you were
let
making,
us-
Mr. Manan.
Let
Yes.
us argue
If you want
the
to
case.
talk on Rafale,
Not-
we are ready.
Now kindly see if they were. Please don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me. If they were an accused in this case, why they have not been summoned by the ED or by the CBI for
Correct.
the last 5 years?
Yes.
Why they have not summoned even once? Number one. Number two, fourth supplementary charge sheet has been filed. Now how it has been leaked to the press, how the Honorable Prime Minister is making the statements in the rallies by giving the name of AP, meaning Ahmed Patel. Who has leaked that? Because the charge sheet is still with the judge. He has not taken the cognizance. Cognizance is being taken by the press as well as by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. Finance Minister says that they have not answered. Why they will answer? They are not accused. They have not been summoned by the investigating officers.
Correct.
They have not been summoned by the court. Why they will answer? Why they are asking the answer? Why they will answer? Number three, Once the person is acquitted on the same charge, he can't be prosecuted for the second time. Leave it aside again. We know it. Why they have taken 5 years? Why, when the election was announced, why the things are being publicized in the rallies? It is a election gimmick, nothing more than that. I totally agree with Mr. Joshi. Now the CBI, every institution, I do not want the name of one institution, one institution of the democracy which is being also demolished by this present government, but they will repent.
So,
it is not good
let
for
me
the
just
country.
add,
We are watching. We are not the silent spectator in this country. But only one thing is, for God's sake, don't demolish the institutions like this. Tomorrow,
Mr. Maran,
you
legally
may not be in
speaking,
the
like you
power
said, Mr. Maran, if I may
number,
just come in
you
here.
may be in the queue.
Mr. Maran, if I may just come
Mr.
in here,
Maran,
legally speaking, like you
they don't have any
said.
evidence against them.
Correct. So they have submitted a fourth charge sheet, a supplementary charge sheet, where they claim they have all these fax letters that speaks about these people, but none of these people have been booked, quizzed, summoned. Nothing has happened so far, let alone be arrested. I just also want to point out from the same charge sheet that ED says they confronted each of these dispatch letters. They confronted Christian Michel about it, and they asked him questions. So there is a part where they ask him about all these codes which are apparently there in his diary. So they ask him about AF, DCH, DG maintenance, BUR, which is bureaucrats, and they say he answered most of them. But when it came to AP,
diaries are not admissible in the eyes of law.
May I just finish this? I agree with you.
No,
May I
please,
just finish
please,
this?
just
No. You're not getting my
Just 1
point.
minute,
No,
ma'am.
Mr.
Just
Manan, let
1
me
minute,
finish
ma'am.
this and I will come
Just
to you.
1
Not
minute.
getting my point. When you hear the rest of my point, you will know what I am saying.
Okay.
AP, he says, Christian Michel says, I cannot say
please.
what Hashke was thinking. As a guess, I would say he was talking about Ahmed Patel. That's his submission. That's the statement by Christian Michel. The second part, for FAM, and he says, I don't know, could mean family. So even if you say that ED is banking on Christian Michel revealing this, this is how it has been put forward. It's a guesswork from the alleged middleman and accused in this case. Now, let me go back to Manoj Joshi and then to Maruf Raza. Mr. Joshi, this case aside, the fact of the matter is...
No, Tanvi, you said that I will
to
be
add
given
only
chance
one
to
thing,
speak.
ma'am. I want
No,
to...
Tanvi, I have
Okay.
to say some
You will-
important
Okay. Gopal
You see,
Agarwal can
there
respond.
are 2 diaries, one in
Tanvi.
Hawala case.
No,
You see,
I would
there
like
were-
to say
there
one
were 2
thing is,
cases, one
no,
in
the
Hawala
people
case.
are saying
Other one,
that
you
why
remember
this
that
middleman?
few
The
judges'
issue-
sons,
Tanvi,
few
I
judges'
have to
sons.
say
One
something
minute, gentlemen.
important.
1 minute, gentlemen. Can we just do it one by one? Mr. Manan, I get your point. You're saying that diaries are not usually taken as evidence in such cases. And that's what we did see in the Hawala case, where again, that case just went nowhere at the end of the day. Gopal Agarwal, quickly respond, please. And then I have to go to our other experts.
Tanvi, the important thing is defense purchase process said that no middleman can be hired by anybody, and there is a confidentiality clause that was there signed between the AgustaWestland and Indian government. Then how this Christian Michel and Mr. Haske were being paid and they were lobbying India. This Congress UPA government has to explain one thing. There was a middleman and legally it was not allowed, but they were working and getting information. Nobody can deny this fact.
So why
Now
is
the
ED
issue
not
is,
questioning this UP and
he's
Congress
asking
people?
that how APRG...
No, so why is ED not questioning these
Tanvi,
people?
let me finish. Tanvi, let me finish.
Bakwas.
So I'm telling you, the ED has to work, Tanvi, ED has to work after full proof, the full establishment of audit trail. They are investigating. They are not just on the allegation or just speculation. They can work on it. They are working on an audit trail. And when he said that, how do you know that AP means Ahmed Patel, how Prime Minister used those words, everybody in India knows it. The case is going on from 2013.
Okay.
What does AP means? What does FAM? It
Correct.
is in the public domain. Everybody knows. So why the Prime Minister will not know what does AP mean?
Okay,
So
it doesn't
he's
matter whether anything
the
has been
issue
proven
is
in court
how
of law.
you take up the cases of this high profile
Okay, point taken, Mr. Gopal Agarwal.
The
My
issue
only
is
limited
also
point to you
important
is
is
if everybody
the money
knows
has
and if
flowed.
you know it is
The
Ahmed
money
Patel,
has
please
flowed.
book Ahmed Patel tomorrow and question him. Book Sonia Gandhi if you think SG is
Yes,
Sonia
sir.
Gandhi and question them. You have been harping
you
about
cannot
these
book
code
him
names
like that.
for the past 2 years
No.
without taking any action against them. No,
No,
government
it
official
has
has
to
been
work
booked.
through a
No
legal
top leader of
process.
Congress has been booked.
No, we are
Only
taking
every election
how the
you make this
information is
noise.
getting away.
Manoj Joshi, to you and Maruf, I have one
You
question
cannot
before I
book
wrap
on
up
the
this
basis of
debate,
a statement.
which is a larger question about cleanup. Now, irrespective of this specific case, how do we go about ensuring that the defense deals that are done in a cleaner manner? Do you agree with Maruf when he says maybe the conversations just have to be government to government and that's how you put the middleman out?
Well, I certainly think it is true that government to government deals work best. But let me say very frankly, I still insist that there is no reason why middlemen cannot be there if they are declared middlemen. We are using the term middlemen. I can use the word consultant. There are people whose job it is to know. Meaning, many of these deals, you have detailed in the chart sheet that he knew this, he knew where the file had gone, etc. Now it's very clear. If a file has gone from a particular office, the information could only be limited to 2 or 3 people. Why are they not being charged? That's one point. The second thing is, let us accept international business practices. If other countries can live with middlemen or consultants, there's no reason why we can't. Yes, of course, if there's bribery involved, we should charge people. But not all middlemen and consultants are into bribery.
Correct.
Defense business is such, it's a very high risk business. You put in a lot of investment and you don't get enough sales. So it's very important to have these consultants who can guide you through a process, especially when you're dealing with countries which you're not familiar with.
But, okay, dealing with countries you're not familiar with, you don't know how business is done in those countries, but it's not as if, Maruf, these guys are the technical experts or anything defense. So do you agree that maybe for defense, we don't need middlemen?
Well, see, Tanvi, you have to come to terms with reality. Now, if you want to go through the defense procurement process, whether you formally admit consultants or middlemen to be around, or whether you sort of let it operate with a wink and a smile, that's your call. But they'll be around. When you have more than one bidder for a particular weapons platform, companies are going to cut very hard deals with their consultants to push them to try and get the deal in favor of them. And unfortunately, and that's the point I was making earlier, this damn defense procurement process, it has some of these rules which are embedded in it, which just make it impossible for us to get anywhere. Now, let me give you a few highlights. You have to go through a minimum process of 353 weeks between when you decide to buy a particular equipment and you formally seek proposals, which you call RFP, and then you go through the whole Defense Acquisition Council and you go through the whole process of trials, etc., which is no cost, no commitment trials. Karte, you come to 353, 352, 353 weeks. Then the price negotiations start. So you are lucky if you get any piece of equipment to the armed forces before it is 8 to 10 years, which means that the equipment, by the time it arrives in the hands of the military, is already halfway to becoming vintage. The second problem is that when you go through these defense deals, you have 3 layers of involvement. You have the armed forces, you have the bureaucracy, and you have the politician who is waiting to receive his cut. So now in this case, they were happy to nail Air Chief Marshal Tyagi and put him under arrest. Whereas the bureaucrats and the politicians who were probably also in the chain and most certainly recipients of money didn't get nailed at all.
Correct.
Because it was easy for you to nail an Air Force officer.
Correct.
Sorry, my voice is going. And the third most important point is that, it's a question we need to ask, that why has Israel, which became an independent country in 48, become one of the world's top exporters? Even China is one of the world's top exporters,
Right.
and we are completely relying on imports because our politicians and our bureaucrats don't let our defense industry take off to the level that it can supply our armed forces because they live off arms deals. So unless you do away with the current system, India will be dependent on arms deals and there will always be scandals. And the net sufferer is the country and its security.
Absolutely well put, Maroof, and I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us. Unfortunately, Congress is not here because Congress ran away in less than 5 minutes of this debate. The big question that we were asking, and we still want to know the answer to that, is whether we have now managed to cut out the middlemen. Can India actually ever have a clean system when it comes to defense deals? Far too important a topic and a subject to compromise at any level. And perhaps you can make a beginning by bringing the corrupt to book, not by just making noise about it, by ensuring that those who are involved in these dirty, shady deals, those who influence ministers and bureaucrats and the decision makers and paid them bribes and kickbacks are actually brought to book. What we have today is another charge sheet by the Enforcement Directorate with claims that Enforcement Directorate has to make. None of this has been proven in a court of law. When will that happen? Will the big and the powerful actually be brought to book? That remains to be seen. Thank you so much for joining us on this debate.